Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Good morning. Lion, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you?
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm great. Thank you. Thank you, Raphael.
Awesome. What an extraordinary name, Lion, Lion. We're going to get to it. So do you roar when you wake up in the morning? I'm just kidding. Listen, I love your name. And I was like, wow, I'm going to be talking to Lion today. So tell me, you're a transformational coach, but a lot of the reasons we do things is because of a moment in time that shaped us, that moved us, that took us in that direction. What would you say was your moment in time?
First of all, I've had many moments, so it's hard to pick one out because my whole life has been full of moments of transformation. In fact, I've been kind of a transformation freak, looking for transformation in any place I could. I could go all the way back to my first mescaline trip in high school and say, well, that was like a big awakening.
Right.
But then there's been many shamanic practices and there's been many experiences. The experience I'm most famous for is when I was shot and almost killed when I was 26 years old.
Wow.
So that was a point at which I realized this is big.
Oh yeah.
Life is serious.
So what were you in the wrong place? Tell us, if you don't mind, a little bit about that experience, because to be almost killed has to be an enlightening situation because you survived.
I did, and it was enlightening. In fact, let's see. Let me try to give you a very short version. It's been written up and published widely, and there's been a film made based on the story. So, it got me. It was my 15 minutes of fame. I was 26 years old. I was a traveling salesman. I had graduated with a degree in consciousness studies, but nobody was hiring people with degrees in consciousness studies at the time.
Right.
And so I didn't know what to do. So I became a traveling salesman, and I had an RV van decked out, and I was traveling around. And whenever I traveled, I would stop and help people whose cars had broken down or who were in trouble. And I was just a nice guy on the road. And I was traveling from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, and in the middle of the Mojave Desert, there was a guy whose car had broken down. And so I stopped to offer him help. And he said, oh, the car's broken. I can't do anything. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I can give you a ride. I'm heading into LA. And he looked at me kind of funny. And he said, okay. And he took his stuff, which was big duffel bags and boxes and things, and put it in my van, which was already crowded. So we started traveling. We ended up traveling for 3 days together. He would take my van and get it gassed up or washed while I was in stores selling my wares. And the third night out, we were camped out in the middle of this near a reservoir. And I was in the back trying to move things around because it was so crowded in there. I was putting things in shelves, and there was an explosion and something hit me in the head, and I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe the gas stove had exploded, and I looked up and the gas stove was intact. And I looked to my left, and there he was with a gun in the front of the van pointing at me like this. And at first
scary.
Yeah, it was. Well, at first I was surprised. I mean, I had grown to trust this guy, and so my first reaction was, oh, he's warning me. He wants to steal my stuff. And at that point, I said, I don't know whether I said it out loud or in my head, but like, take it all. Like, leave me naked outside. Take it. Like, go.
Just material things, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then he shot again, and I realized he wasn't warning me; he was going to kill me, and I couldn't defend myself. I was a sitting duck, basically. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to die. This is unexpected, but I don't want to die with anger or upset in my system. I want to die in peace. So I reached up to Source and began communing with Source and felt the love light coming down through me, and I was being filled with love and light. And he shot again, and the second and third bullets missed me by fractions of an inch. But by this time, I was out of my body and looking down at the van with this little scene going on, and from that spark of consciousness, outside, and so I was sort of ready to go home. It's like, okay, I'm ready to go home now, and the fourth bullet hit me and pushed my head aside, and all this blood was rushing down, but somehow I was back in my body. I didn't know why I was back in my body. I was supposed to be, out. So I thought, well, if I'm here, I at least want to look my assassin in the eyes. And I was kind of perpendicular to him. And so I turned my head and looked at him, and he freaked out. And he said, "Why aren't you dead, man? You're supposed to be dead." And I didn't know the answer to that question. So I just said, "Here I am." And he said, "It's too weird, man. It's too weird. It's just like my dream." And I said, "What dream?" And he said, "I had this dream this morning, and I was shooting at this guy, but he wouldn't die. But it wasn't you. It was somebody else in the dream." And I thought, okay, who's writing this script? This is a really bad movie that I've suddenly become a part of. And so I thought, well, okay, this is weird. I've been hit by bullets. I feel intact, but I was kind of checking my body to see, like, I knew enough about anatomy and physiology because I had studied it in school, that I was like, something ought to be missing if the bullet went through my brain, which it appeared to have done. And so I thought, okay, well, here we are in this weird situation. Let's see what I can do. And I began talking to him very slowly because I knew he was all adrenalated. He was looking out windows, and I said, he said, "Why aren't you dead, man? You're supposed to be dead." And I said, "Well, maybe I'm not supposed to die." And he said, "Yeah, but I shot you. I shot you 4 times." Anyway, so this began an 8-hour conversation.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was still filled with this love light, and he was included in it, right? So I was in this very expanded space, and he was just jumping around, and I was trying to calm him down. I figured if I could keep him talking, he wouldn't shoot me again, because I didn't know how many bullets he had in that gun. Maybe 2 more, maybe lots more.
Right.
So by engaging him in talk, he slowed down, and he started getting concerned, and he kind of walked over to me with a gun in his hand, and he looked at my head, and he said, "Does it hurt, man?" And I recognized he was caring about me, right? He went from shooting me to caring about me. And I said, "Well, it hurts, but I think I'm okay." And he said, "Okay, I'm going to take you to a hospital that I know." And I said, "Okay, that sounded like a good idea to me." So I could sure, why not? And so he got in the front of the van, he started driving, and he drove for some period of time. I was so out of space and time that I have no idea. It was maybe half an hour, maybe an hour. And then the van pulled over and stopped. And I realized, okay, well, we're not near a hospital, because even though I was down on the floor, there weren't any bright lights.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he walked back to me and sat next to me on the bed that was right next to where I was sitting, and with a gun in his hand. And he said, "I can't take you to the hospital, man. I have to kill you." And I went, "Oh, why is that?" Get curious. And he said, "Because if I take you to the hospital, they'll put me back in jail. I can't go back to jail, man." And I thought, okay, not only is this person a crazy person with a gun, it's an ex-con with a gun. So it was like up-leveled the seriousness of the situation. And so I said, "Well, maybe I won't turn you in." And he said, "Oh, I can't trust you." And we went through this engaged more conversation. And then at one point I said, "I'm really cramped in this position. Can I get out and stretch? He said, yeah, okay, but don't try anything funny. No, I'm not going to try anything funny. And so I got out of the van and we walked down this hill to a little pond, and I was washing my face off because somehow I felt invulnerable. And I stood up and turned around, and he kind of had the gun in his hand, and he said, what would you do if I handed you this gun? And I said, I'd throw it out in the water there. And he said, you wouldn't shoot me? I said, no, why would I do that? I've got my life. You've got your life. We're okay. And he said, he looked at me and he said, man, you are the weirdest person I've ever met. And I thought to myself, I'm probably the weirdest person you'll ever meet.
That's right. That's right.
So we went back to the van and we talked more, and I got him to tell his story. What was his background? Why did he end up in this situation? And then we started negotiating. How could we get out of it? He knew he didn't want to go back to jail. I didn't want to die. So it took us many hours of more conversation. The sun rose, and I heard birds singing. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. And eventually we came to an agreement. And the agreement was that I would not turn him in, and he would never do anything like that again. And so we drove to a place that he knew. We got out of the van. I shook his hand, said goodbye, went back to the van, and drove myself to the hospital, where the doctor said, well, you've had 2 bullets graze your skull. He said, you're a lucky man. And I said, no, I'm blessed. I'm a blessed man.
Right.
So,
sure.
And that's the story. That's the story in brief.
It's an incredible story, because the fact that you didn't bleed out, right? And that you were actually functioning, you were calm, you had love in your heart, and you actually saw yourself from above, thinking you were gone, and you were just looking back, and you were kind of like looking back and saying, okay, I'm off. And then you feel like you're back in your body. All these things, it must have been almost, now that you recall it, like a slow motion movie.
Oh, right? It was definitely, I was in slow-mo for sure. For sure. It was an odd thing to be out of time and space. Because one of the things I did while I was preparing to die was I went back through my past and forgave everyone who had hurt me, and asked forgiveness for everyone I had hurt.
Right.
And because I wanted to die clean, I didn't want to die with anything left over. And I said thank you to my parents and to my friends and my loved ones. And so I really was ready to go clean. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm ready to go. Yeah.
That's really incredible. Most people would never think of that, right? They would think of like, I just need to live, right? They wouldn't think of, I want to have, forgiveness in my heart. I want to not only forgive those people that have hurt me, but I want, if I've hurt anybody, I would want them to forgive me too. So you were asking the universe, or if you will, God, to bring you into the light, right? To relieve the pain that you thought you were going to be going through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I love the fact that when he asked you, how come you're not dead? He goes, maybe it wasn't my time, buddy. Right? Thinking about the concepts of gratitude, right? Now, you were fortunate that you did not die, but so many people die every day because they're not grateful. And I don't mean actual death, just in their heart and their mind, because they don't go to sleep with gratitude for what they've accomplished that day. Sometimes they take things for granted, and they never ask for forgiveness for the people that they may have hurt without knowing it. Like, who knows? Maybe you were driving and you cut somebody off and didn't realize it, but somehow that impacted that person. So it's the little things that we need to be grateful for. And in your time, when most people are selfish, you were not. So, I mean, that's a beautiful thing, right? So tell me, Lion, what movie was your story in?
Oh, it's called A Shot in the Light. And if you go to my story on my website, liongoodman.com, you can read Lion's near-death story. And at the end of the story, you'll get a link to the movie. It's a 20-minute short film that won an award,
Nice.
won first place at a film festival. And it was brilliant. And what's interesting is that I was a consultant on the movie, of course. So when after the movie was shot and edited, the producer called me up and she said, "We're having a hard time with the film." I said, "Oh, why is that?" She said, "Well, every story has an arc of development, and you didn't develop it. You just kind of stayed steady state throughout the whole process." And he transformed. And she said, "I'm thinking of turning the film into his point of view." And I went, "Oh, okay, you're the filmmaker." So the film is actually based on the shooter's point of view rather than mine.
Huh. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Because and there is his transformation.
Yeah, he was transformed as deeply as I was, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe even more. Right.
It's hard to measure transformation, because it is transformation means a complete shift. So it's like, what do you compare it to?
Yeah. Because you don't know whatever happened to him, right?
No, I followed him psychically for about 5 years. I kind of would check on him every once in a while because we were certainly psychically linked. And to my best estimate or my best guess, he actually got his life together, stopped doing crime, and got married and had kids. I think he became a normal human being out of the crime scene, but I don't know for sure.
I don't know if I can label anyone normal.
Good point. Good point. No, the normal is dysfunctional and partially aware and living life the best you can with with all the troubles that we have in life. And look, we're in the middle of meta crisis, climate and politics and everything else. It's important to have ourselves together in order to deal with everything going on the outside. Right. And if you don't have your internal system clear and straight, it's going to be even more difficult to deal with the things on the outside, including our relationships, our families, our kids, our parents. So there's consciousness expansion, consciousness raising is, to me, the best leverage for being able to handle life.
So you graduated as a consciousness coach, right?
Well, I graduated with a degree in consciousness studies. Way back in 1975. That'll tell you how old I am. So it was the first such degree granted, as far as I know, because many years later there were colleges putting together programs in consciousness studies. I put my own program together. And so I gathered everything I wanted to know and said, "This is my degree." And they went, "Okay, that sounds good." And so they granted me the degree in that program. And so I was already a student of spirituality and consciousness and brain neurology and psychology. So I started this at a young age. In junior high school, I started studying ESP and reincarnation, that kind of thing. I was curious because I knew there was something wrong with me as a kid.
Really? Let's get to that.
Yeah, I was socially awkward. I didn't really know how to have friends. I didn't know how to be a friend. And I knew I was different. I could see, even in elementary school, I could look at other kids and go, "I'm different than them."
Wow.
And so, of course, as most children do, I came to the conclusion there's something wrong with me. And so I wanted to find out what it was, because if I could fix it, then I could be normal like they were.
Right.
Normal, right? And that's really what began my search for understanding what is the nature of human nature, what's the nature of the mind, and why do we do what we do? Why do we behave like we behave? I figured if I could figure it out, then I could fix myself. So over time, I took more than 100 workshops and trainings, studied with gurus, did shamanic practices. So I was studying anything that had to do with consciousness, with the brain, with me, with people. I became just massively curious.
And is that when you created the Clear Beliefs?
No, actually, I took big left turn after I got shot. I didn't want to travel anymore. I didn't want to be on the road anymore. So I was looking for a job, and I got a job as a headhunter, which is ironic, don't you think, after getting my head hunted?
Being shot in the head.
Yeah.
What do you want to be? I think I want to be a headhunter.
Exactly. So I got into executive search, and that was my career for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
I was finding people for corporations to fill jobs, and I worked for other people for a while. Then I had my own business, and then when the dot bomb happened, my business fell apart, as did most people's. And so then I didn't know what to do. And my girlfriend at the time happened to be teaching people how to coach. She had a week-long program and said, "I'll certify you as a coach after a week of training." And this was early. And she said, "Well, you ought to be a coach." And I said, "I don't know anything about coaching." And she said, "Of course you do. You've been coaching executives for 25 years. And you've done all this personal development work, and you'll be great. I don't want to coach anymore. I'm going to give you my clients."
Really?
And I said, "Okay." So that's how I began coaching. I was just doing what I knew how to do with people. And that was a long time ago.
Do you remember your first client?
No, I don't actually. I think I was so nervous that I was just doing the best I could with that person in front of me, and kept doing that. And it wasn't until later that I got some formal training and became a PCC.
Right.
But it's been a long good haul, because I realized I actually have these skills, with all this study of myself, understanding people, understanding consciousness, understanding psychology, that I actually could help people. And from the very beginning, I was working at the psychological level, not just the coaching level. Today's standard coaching is we don't do therapy, we don't do consulting, we just help a person look into the future and say, where do you want to go, and how can I help you get there? And I've always been a therapeutic coach, finding the deep causes of whatever's going on for people.
It's the deep stuff that really sets people apart, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we're incredibly complex and marvelous beings. I mean, we have so many aspects to us. We're multidimensional beings. And that's one of the keys to the method I created, it's a multidimensional approach to a multidimensional problem. Our beliefs are created by our experience, whether someone tells us something, that's part of our experience, or whether we come up with the idea ourselves, like there's something wrong with me, or your parent says you're a piece of crap and you don't deserve to live. All of these are experiences, and our experiences are multidimensional. We have all our five senses and our sixth sense and our energy body and our environment, all these aspects of self. And so our beliefs are therefore multidimensional. And so if we want to clear this multidimensional belief, we have to use a multidimensional tool to clear the whole multidimensional belief. Because there's a lot of tools out there that work on just the mental side. Well, just change your mind. Right. Just do it. Just think differently. Say affirmations, right? Or there's physical energetic techniques like tapping. We'll just tap and say the magic words, and it'll be better. And that's good energetically, but it doesn't impact the deep subconscious mind.
No,
and there's emotional techniques
that we got to change, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm fascinated by the study of the mind, of the subconscious mind. I am fascinated by all of what we can accomplish when we actually put our mind to it, right? And so many people, they negate that. They're like, well, I can't do that. Well, I'm not capable. Well, I'm not gifted like you are, or all this other nonsense that they put limits on themselves, right? So they get in their own way. They put barriers up left and right. Meanwhile, we all have the ability to, some are better than others, no doubt. Some comprehend better. But I think that we all have the ability to be more, and we don't give ourselves enough credit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, all of the statements you made are limiting beliefs. I can't do that. That's a limiting belief. I'm not like you. That's a limiting belief. That's not me. That's a limiting belief. So whenever there's a not in the sentence, it's a limiting belief, and whether there's a can't or don't, or these are all limiting beliefs. And the truth is that all beliefs are limiting, because even if you say that is a cat, that's a belief. But what you've taken this incredible creature, this multidimensional creature, and you've labeled it, which limits its possibilities. Oh, that's a cat. It's not a feline tiger. It's not, it's so every belief is limiting. Most of them don't get in our way. The neutral beliefs, like that is a cat, doesn't get in our way. It doesn't create any emotional limitations. But as soon as you start talking about yourself or other people or the world in a limited way, that's when it gets to be limiting to yourself and to your life. So by unlimiting all those beliefs, by taking them out and clearing them, now space opens up. There's new possibilities, and new possibilities open up space for anything, right? So I do consider us unlimited beings, except we limit ourselves.
Right. So 25 years helping others, right? And it wasn't even your idea to become a coach.
No, it wasn't. Had I learned about coaching when I was in college, I probably would have gone there. I thought about getting a master's or a PhD in psychology, but I was like done with school. It's like enough already. I want to go live my life. So it took a while to do full circle. But all the while I was a headhunter, I was also doing shamanic practices at night and taking workshops on weekends. I mean, I never stopped my personal development.
Yeah. It took someone else to see your gifts, right? So when we think about the fact that we don't expand ourselves as much as we can, right? It's also when someone else can see the beauty in us, they can see the gifts that we have, but meanwhile we can't. And I think that's why coaching to me is such a phenomenal practice, if you will, because it's like, and I always say this to someone, is like, what does the back of your neck look like? You have no idea, right? But someone else can tell you what the back, unless, you get a haircut, the barber puts the mirror behind your head so you can see what you did, right? What he did. But when we think of a coach, it's someone who definitely can see the potential that we have. Like your girlfriend at the time said, hey, you know what? And why was she done? That's another question I'm going to ask. Why was she done? And she thought, like, you can be an amazing coach. Do you know why she was done?
She was more interested in teaching than in coaching. So she wanted to expand her teaching.
Gotcha.
So it's like enough already with these people. I want to stand in front of audiences and speak. That she was a public speaker, so that's how she was built.
Right. Because there are different modalities of coaching, right? There's one-on-one, there's one-to-many, and then there's the public speaking, which is also coaching, if you will, right? Because when you're doing public speaking, no one just wants for you to come in and just speak about, what you had for breakfast, right?
They're looking for inspiration. Yeah,
right.
They want to be inspired.
Motivation. To get someone to do something, right? And that's basically what a coach is, right? They motivate you, they inspire you, they guide you, right? So how different is public speaking? It's just the only thing that I see. It's not one-to-one, it's more one-to-many, right?
I think that makes a difference because when I'm one-to-one, I am with that person, their unique self,
Correct.
Their unique consciousness, their unique psychology, their unique history, and I'm interacting with a specific being. And when I'm in front of a big audience, I'm in front of a whole bunch of beings. I don't know any of them. Right. So I can't customize what I do or say to each person's needs. And I've done plenty of public speaking, and I love being on podcasts one-on-one, right? But my particular processes work one-on-one with that person's unique psychology and problem and issue. We've tried doing it as coaching, as a group coaching model. It just doesn't work very well because you have to be so present with your client that whatever they say, whatever they do, how they're breathing, how they're moving, the expression on their face, those are all qualities that you have to be present to in order to know which direction to move next.
Oh yeah, being present is the most important thing. I mean, I can only imagine that you are with a client, and not you personally, but any coach, and they're thinking about the next client, or they're thinking about the event they're going to, instead of focusing and being in the moment. Because I agree with you 100%. Being in the moment allows you to really see clearly. If you're not in the moment, man, are you lost?
I've seen coaches multitasking while they're coaching, reading emails, or
Okay.
I can't imagine that. I'm just so with that person. I want to know who they are,
Yeah.
what's going on with them. I'm completely merged with their consciousness. Not so much that I don't have objectivity, but I'm really with them. I really want to know who they are and what's going on inside their head. I guess because I spent so much time inside my own head trying to figure myself out. It's a habit.
Yeah, being inside your own head, I think it's a good place, personally. And I know
Depends on the head, probably.
depends on who you're talking to, but for me, it's so important to have that alone time. And I always say to someone, because a lot of people are afraid of being alone, right? Because they're afraid of what their thoughts are going to be, or they always need someone. They always need to have people around them. And when they're by themselves, they have no idea what to do. But I say, I need to be able to be alone with me, so I can understand me, so I can help other people. The only way I can help someone else is if I understand me. If I have no clue as to who I am, how can I even give you even one word of advice? I can't. And then the other thing I say to people is, no matter where you go, guess what? There you are.
I love that statement. Yeah.
Yes.
I was really fortunate to have a great teacher when I was 19 years old. I was in college, and he had his own school in the mountains of Colorado. His name was T.D. Lingo, and his school was called the Laughing Coyote Mountain School of Consciousness and Brain Studies.
Wow.
And so I got an early start on this self-awareness, and he was my coach. He was my teacher. He was my mentor. And so I was very fortunate to have a wise person to guide me at a young age. And he said, look, everything you study in college is about you, and that's how you make it relevant. So if
Right.
you're studying physiology, you're studying your own physiology. If you're studying history, you're studying your own history and the history of people that you're related to. If you're studying physics, you're studying the physics of your body and yourself. So from a very early age, I started looking at everything as informative about me and about others and about the world. So I just had that insatiable curiosity that drove me to want to understand, who am I? Who are you? What are we doing here? What is life? And what the hell's going on? That's
What is going on, and who put me here?
exactly. Who wrote the script?
Yeah, I love the fact that you talked about that. It seemed like you were in a movie, and it seemed like, who on earth wrote the script when you had gotten shot? But if you will, right? Sometimes we write the script ourselves, and sometimes we're surprised by how the outcomes come out, but we didn't think ahead of our actions, because every action is going to represent a result, right? If you did not pick up that guy, you probably may not have gotten shot, right? So every action that we do, but the fact that that he took 3 days to shoot you, was he getting the courage? Was he,
I
so many
asked that question.
questions.
I asked
Mhm.
him that question.
You
That's
did.
the fortunate thing about having 8 hours of talking with him
Yeah,
after he shot me. Is I learned a lot about him. And I said, why did you shoot me? And he said, well, I planned on shooting whoever stopped and picked me up,
Mm,
because that was his way out. He had no money. His car broken down. It's like, okay, I'm gonna take whatever's theirs, and I'll be fine, And he said and I pulled out my gun to shoot you many times during these 3 days, but I couldn't do it.
Huh.
And I said, why? He said, because you were being nice to me. And I kept thinking, I want to shoot you, but you kept being nice to me, and I couldn't shoot you. And I said, well, why did you finally decide it was time? He said, because I thought, it would be worth it to get the stuff. And I guess I looked like a rich hippie or something because I had a nice van and lots of things. And, and when I was thinking while he was driving, I thought, okay, so he shot me to get my stuff. How much is this van worth and everything inside it? I said, maybe he could fence it for $5,000.
Right.
And I realized that's how much my life was worth, $5,000.
Yeah. Meanwhile, to you, it's worth way more.
Yeah. Right. But on the market, on the open market.
In his market.
Exactly.
And you bring up a really good point, because, my gosh, people have killed other people for nothing, for pennies even.
A pair of shoes.
If they're on drugs, if they're on this, or if it's just a silly dispute and someone just decides to kill someone for no reason, right? So it's a scary situation.
Yeah, well, studying history, which is one of my areas of interest, people have been killing each other for tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. And so one of the early books I read, recommended by my teacher, was The Killer Ape, which is by a guy named Artery. And basically he said we evolved not from nice monkeys in trees, but from killer apes who were going out and killing each other to get resources, that kind of thing. So this is deep in us. And when you look at the history of wars and what wars have been about, they're usually about resources or vengeance and that kind of thing. So we need to understand that part of our history as well, because we're made of that. That's part of us. And so when you're studying, what other people do and why they do it, that's in me too. There's nobody that's immune from being human, and that human nature includes our primitive instincts. It includes our basic psychology. For me, the belief lens is the lens that makes most sense, because I could say, okay, beliefs are the infrastructure of the human mind. We perceive, we recognize patterns, and then we use those patterns to survive and to get along. And those patterns are the beliefs. There's many names for them, paradigms and frames and maps of meaning. But it's the infrastructure that then drives our perceptions, drives our choices, drives our behaviors, our reactions. And so if we can get to that layer and change that layer, then everything else changes. It's like beliefs are lenses that we look through, right? So if we change the lens, suddenly it's a different world. We're seeing a different world through a different lens.
So many people have dirty lenses too.
Yeah. Well, their parents started dirtying them. What's wrong with you? Shut up. Don't speak. That's the wrong thing to do. I mean, all that begins to dirty the lens, and so parents are constantly loading their child with beliefs about themselves and about the world and about how to behave. And then the church comes in, or the synagogue or the mosque, and then teachers come in from public school, and then other kids come in, and the media comes in and starts adding these beliefs, these false beliefs, to the structure of the mind. The mind wants to know how to survive. And so it's looking for patterns. How can I survive? How can I make sure that I don't die? And that drives us to take on beliefs. Well, if that's true, then I've got a little piece of security and I'm less likely to die. Children want to take on the beliefs of their parents because there's a primitive instinct that if I am like my parents, they will like me and they won't throw me out to the wolves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so we eagerly take on their beliefs. We want to be like them, and so we take on their beliefs, and then we're part of the group. If you want to belong to a group, take on their beliefs, right? And so we're troop animals. We evolved from apes and monkeys, and in a troop you are safe. If you're pushed out of a troop, you're dead. So this is where part of this deep instinct comes from.
Right. One of the things that, in children, and you mentioned children, they're so susceptible to the behaviors that they see around them, right? Because they're sponges and they want to please, right? So they become pleasers. And in order to make someone, like if they'll do an action and it pleases someone, like, oh, I'm going to do that again because I'm going to get
Absolutely.
this result.
That's ensures survival.
Yeah. It also ensures the happy result, right? They're always looking for happiness. Everybody that I've ever met, even the grumpy people, are looking for happiness. Even the ones that look miserable, they still want that feeling of triumph, right? Even if it's triumph over someone else, it's still a good feeling to them. And I'm not saying triumph over someone else is a good thing, but to certain people, because they've learned how to do that, makes them feel good. So I think human nature also calls out for that good feeling, right? Whatever it is.
That's right. We'll do whatever looks like it's going to help me survive. And that feeling of happiness is our basic instinct. Like, yes, that's good. You eat something sweet and the body says, good. Someone smiles at you, good. I want more of that. What do I need to do to get more of that?
Yeah. And it all stems from the visuals that we get, the auditory, right? The feelings. It all comes back to that. And you said it, that instinct, right? How does it feel? How does it look? How does it taste? All these things. And it also, it starts to create habits. If I do this, I get that reaction. If I do this, I get that reaction. Which reaction do I want better? And then you do it enough where you don't think about it anymore. And that's a habit, right?
Absolutely. And addictions are the same thing. It's
Correct.
like, well, I'm in pain. If I shoot up this drug, I'm not in pain. That's a good feeling to not be in pain. So I'm back in pain. I'll shoot up again and get out of pain.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, now our brains are set up for addiction and dependency, whether it's food or sex or drugs or alcohol or,
Whatever.
dancing till midnight. It's like what we want. We're seeking that relief from pain and the pleasure. We're no different than an amoeba that's attracted to things that are sweet and repelled by things that are toxic. So that this is very ancient instinct.
So, Lion, you also do workshops and you do training, obviously. So your workshops, obviously, not one-on-one, they're one-to-many. What are your workshops like, and what are you teaching in them?
Well, we have a monthly free event called Discover Your Beliefs, and they're topical. So one's on money, and others on relationships and love, and other ones on sex and intimacy, another one's on business and sales and marketing. So in those free events, they're 2-hour events, and we're basically helping people discover what are the beliefs that are blocking them from what they want to accomplish. And we have dozens of coaches who come into those events and help people one-on-one because everybody's unique. We have processes, and I've got ebooks, for people to sort of do their own belief self-diagnosis. That's what I call it. But it really helps to have someone else asking the questions in the right way and finding out what's underneath that belief and what's underneath that one and what's underneath that one to get to the core. Once you find the core belief, the core experience that began the whole process, then you can delete it. And then we have a 3-week program called Delete the Beliefs That Defeat You. And so we take what they discovered, and then we, in a three-week period, we clear 1 or 2 major beliefs. And when you do that, your world changes, your possibilities change, you change. And so that's what we do in groups. And then I do a training called the Clear Beliefs Coach Training. And in that training, I teach people all these methodologies that I've developed over the last 20 years. And that's a very intense training, very rigorous, 100 hours of study and practice. And I transmit all of these techniques that work for them. And so they go out and they use those techniques with their clients, whether they're a therapist or a coach or a healer or a psychologist or a business consultant. These techniques work I'd say 97% of the time for 97% of the people.
Mm.
And it's pretty extraordinary when you get to facilitate true transformation and see it before your eyes and get to experience the other person going, oh my God, and the weights lift off and the eyes open up and the light starts glowing more brightly. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that's what I live for.
That's nice. And I put it up on the screen also, beliefrelief.net, right?
Yes, right.
And you said you do a 2-hour free coaching?
No, I don't do a 2-hour free coaching. I do
Workshop.
2-hour. Yes, the beliefrelief.net will take you to our free monthly events. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And so you say you bring different coaches. Is it different coaching modalities, or is it all based on trauma, transformation? What is it based on?
There are people that I've trained. So they're coaches that I've trained come back and help with other people
Nice.
in those workshops. And they also are there during our training because it's a pretty intense training. And so they're there as supervisors and to support the learning process.
Very cool.
I've trained over 550 coaches. Today is actually graduation day for this most recent cohort.
Yay.
Yay.
Today's a good day.
Today's a good day. And the next training begins in November 15th. So for practitioners, people who are coaches or therapists or healers, check out clearbeliefs.com. That's our training site. And that gives all the information about the training.
Yeah, I'll put that one up as well, clearbeliefs.com, and that's for the training.
Yeah.
When we think about what we're giving or what we have been given, right, the gifts that we have, and I always believe that you're selfish if you keep them to yourself, right? You should share them like you're doing, and you're having other people help and share. And to give, because you can't take all the stuff with you when you go anyway, right? On that day that you thought you were going to be gone, what did you take with you? You had nothing. Everything.
All I had was my being.
That's all you had.
My awareness. Awareness doesn't die, and it can't be harmed.
Right.
But your psychology, who you believe you are, your ego, those, you're right, those go.
Yeah. But you can't even take material things. So why hold on to all this stuff when you can share it with others and enrich their lives, right?
Some people actually believe they have nothing of value to share, which is unfortunate. That's a very, very limiting belief, because everyone has their being, their experience, their understandings, their insights, and their ability to help others and to support other people. So yeah, it would be great if if everyone in the world was looking for someone to help or to support. That would make a good world. That
would make an amazing world. Yeah. Who's going to cut you off then, right? So you decided to not only share your story, which is a fascinating story, and I'm so happy that you are here with us today.
Thank you.
You did not die that day. And you decided to also write books. You've written several, right? Tell us about what encouraged you, or what moment did you say, you know what, I got to put something down. I got to create a book. What made you do that?
Well, I was in a wonderful relationship with a fantastic woman named Anadea Judith, and she's written 10, 12 books by now. And so when I was in a relationship with her, I was teaching about manifestation, and so was she. She was teaching it through the model of the chakras. She's a chakra expert.
Right.
And I was teaching it from the belief side. And so we combined our knowledge and wisdom, and we began teaching around the world this program on how to use the chakra system as a model for manifestation. And so we wrote a book together called Creating on Purpose. And you can find out about it at creatingonpurpose.net. So it's a wonderful book. It really guides you through the process of taking an idea, which is from somewhere, and moving it down to the ground, to where it's reality. So it's really turning your dreams into reality. And so that was my first book, my first published book. But then I wrote many ebooks. One is called Clear Your Beliefs, which is based on my technology, how to start working to clear your own beliefs. And that comes with coaching now. And then I wrote because I started teaching how to clear your clients' limiting beliefs. And I was also working with men's groups for a long time. I was a founder of a men's group and a participant in men's community.
Mm.
And so I wrote a book called Menlightenment, which is a great title.
I like it. I like it.
And then through other relationships, I began realizing that I had narcissistic tendencies. And everybody was talking about narcissists. And I thought, I got to understand this aspect of myself. You used the word selfish a little while ago. And so narcissists are self-oriented, right? They're primarily interested in themselves. And, there's a spectrum of narcissism from I'm going to take good care of myself so I feel good to I'm the only person that's important in the universe and everybody else is tools in my universe, right? That's a really wide spectrum.
Right.
So I wrote a book to explain this called The Narcissism Primer. It started with a series of articles in the Goodman Project. So those are some of my books.
Very cool. And you're in the works, am I right, that you are co-authoring a new book, Transforming Trauma? Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a new book. It's one of those books where lots of people contribute, and that's now out, Transforming Trauma by Nuna Isi Ma, and lots of other co-authors. I'm one of them. But trauma is the leading cause of problems in life, as far as I'm concerned. And people think of trauma as being, you're beaten severely, or you're robbed and beaten up, or some rock falls on your head. But trauma is subtle, and we are traumatized by subtle things happening, like your parents suddenly looking at you and going, "What's wrong with you?" That can be traumatic. I'll tell you a quick story. I was working with a multimillionaire as a client, and I said, what's going on? What do you need support with? And he said, well, I keep making millions of dollars and losing millions of dollars, making millions of dollars and losing millions of dollars. And it's driving me mad. What's going on? And so through my process, I took him back in his memory. And he suddenly remembered being 3 years old, walking with his mother in the streets of New York. And he saw a shiny penny on the ground. He got very excited. And he reached down to pick up the penny. And his mother said, "Don't touch that. It's dirty." And that traumatized him, right? Boom. And he suddenly realized through that process that he couldn't hold on to money because he shouldn't touch it. It's dirty. No matter how much money he made, he couldn't hold on to it.
Wow.
So that's the kind of work we do, is finding the cause of whatever the circumstances in the world.
Would you say that relieving your trauma has to also start with forgiveness?
Forgiveness is part of it,
right?
But I don't think it's the most important part, I don't think it's necessarily where you have to start.
Right.
We have a forgiveness process in our work. Forgiveness at some point, it's got to be in there sometime. Right. Not only forgiving the other person, but also forgiving yourself for being in that situation, for getting yourself into that situation, for being born in that family. It's like, okay, it wasn't your fault, but you have some responsibility, right? So forgiveness is really important, but I don't think it's the most important thing. First, you've got to actually go back and experience and feel what you felt at that time, because all of our work goes to the feeling, to the felt sense in the body. Right. And that's how we get further back in time and memory than most techniques, because we didn't have words or language for the first 2 years of life. Right. And that's where a lot of our early programming came from. So we use feelings to work our way back, because you had feelings at that time, you had experiences at that time, but you didn't have words. And a lot of our beliefs are associated with the verbal mind, and these deep programs came in before we had language. Right. So going back and actually feeling what happened, experiencing it, because of the time you separated yourself from the experience. That's part of the trauma response, is that you get away from the pain that's overwhelming, right? And you do something else, right? So we go back and basically reintegrate that experience so that it can be digested and worked through.
And how about acceptance? Acceptance of the trauma, your role in it, other people's roles. How much does that play into it?
I'm working with your question because I feel that the depth of your question.
Yes.
For us, the presence comes when you're willing to experience whatever you experienced. So it's a willingness, right? I teach about the creation cycle, which is basically things begin, they have a middle, and they have an end. But if you're in the middle of an experience and you resist it and you say, I don't want to experience that, it creates a resistance cycle. And that resistance cycle is what causes the problem because you're having an experience, but you're resisting it at the same time. And that's where it gets stuck. And so we go back and we resolve it. And one of the ways to resolve it is to become willing to experience the experience that you didn't want to experience. And that frees up that stuck experience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love you. I love the work you're doing and the fact that you are giving people a voice in a way, right? Because so many people who go through trauma don't realize that their voice, and we said it before, they don't believe that they can do something. They don't believe they can accomplish something. And a lot of it is probably because of trauma, of what they experienced when they were young. And like you said, that gentleman who thought money was dirty and he shouldn't touch it. Meanwhile, he knew how to make so much of it,
Right.
and then he had to get rid of it. So with working with you, he doesn't get rid of his money anymore?
No, he doesn't have to lose it because it's no. He resolved that experience even by recognizing what it was. That began the resolution process, and then we have a way to actually change the memory. In psychology, it's called memory reconsolidation, where we go back and we actually shift that experience. And the part of us that got stuck back in that experience is still stuck in that experience. And so we go back and we resolve it by actually changing the memory of what happened. Our memory is malleable. You can program people with memories. Our memories are partial and they depend on what's going on and all kinds of factors. So we just use that as part of what the tools available to us as we go back and shift the memory, re-experience the experience, change the perspective, because everybody has a perspective when they're traumatized, and that fixes. And so then we give the person other perspectives, and that begins to allow it to be digested and processed in consciousness. And then it becomes just a memory, not a trauma. So it's like, yeah, that thing happened to me, but I'm free of the parts that were stuck back there. Now they're integrated into me, and they're part of my wisdom, part of my lifeline.
Right. So I'm just wondering if that kind of work would help someone who has OCD, because there had to be a time in their life when they were not OCD, right? Or anxiety, or all these different things. So that transformation, and you're right, we should have to be able to go back and not only live it, but understand it, and then drive from there, right?
Right. Resolution. How do you resolve something that's stuck? I've worked with people with OCD. I've worked with people with almost every condition. And I'm very careful to say these are the limitations of my work. It's like, we are not trauma experts. We're not trained in therapy. I call it trauma-informed therapeutic coaching because that's what it is. But we're not therapists. And we're also not the coaches that ICF says, coaches don't do therapy. We do a therapeutic process. It's a coaching process. It's based on beliefs. It's not based on storytelling. It's not talk therapy. Yeah, I forgot where we're going.
How we can help someone, overcome some of their
right.
limiting beliefs, their anxieties, their behaviors, because all of our behaviors, and it doesn't matter what it is. I don't know if you remember that show, and it was Raymond, right? Remember Raymond?
Yes.
Okay, so the brother used to always have to put his spoon to his chin before he ate his food. It was the funniest thing, but in reality, that can be something that can be harmful to someone, or someone washing their hands all the time, or having to do all these different things. But they made a fun aspect of he had to touch his chin before he put the food in his mouth.
Right.
But that also became a behavior because of an instance, a moment in time
Right.
that made him do it and gave him comfort, right?
Right. So I remember where I was going is that the limitations of our process is we're not therapists. We don't work with people who have been diagnosed with psychological issues or mental health issues. And we're very clear about that. It's like if this is if my process, our processes are designed for sort of normally neurotic people. Sometimes they're called the worried well. The people who are functioning in life, and and that's what I teach is, if somebody's on a psychotherapeutic drug or deeply in therapy, or they've been diagnosed, that's for therapists. That's not for us. We're coaches. We're not therapists. Our processes happen to work well for the kinds of normal traumas that most people have in their background, but not for extreme trauma and not for complex trauma. And the same is true with any diagnosed process. Like, for example, we use an imaginal process, which should not be used for anyone with delusional disorders such as schizophrenia. So we're very clear. This is our boundary. We're on this side of all that stuff. And I've worked with people with many different kinds of disorders because I've been in this for so long. And basically the processes work, and I've taught therapists these processes, and they find them very effective for their work. So we're very careful to not pretend that we're therapists.
No, I appreciate you saying that as well. Yeah. One of the things that I had asked you before, and I know that you have graduation and so forth, and I know you have a busy day, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But okay, I'm ready for it. Your name was not Lion, but you told me in a different conversation that you changed it, I think when you were 18.
Yeah, I was.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mentioned that I had this teacher in the mountains of Colorado named T.D. Lingo, and part of his program was that he had studied history dramatically, and so he said the native people of this country would go on vision quests, and they would have a vision, and they would change their name to align with the vision, right? So you had a camp name like Little Stinker, and then you'd grow up and you'd go on a vision quest, and you'd see a great eagle, and so you became Flying Eagle, or and so part of his program was that you found a medicine name, something that you could grow into, and so my medicine name, longer story. So I was walking through the woods going, what's my medicine name? I didn't know anything about medicine. I was an 18-year-old kid, in college, grew up in Denver, it's in the suburbs. I didn't know anything about medicine. And so I was kind of walking in the woods because he had 250 acres of beautiful mountain property. And I'm walking along going, medicine name, what's my medicine name? And I heard Lion. And I went, lion? I don't know anything about lions. They're in the zoo, like they're in Africa. I don't know what's and I said, okay, well, if that's what I'm to grow into, if that's my future, what am I now? And I realized, well, I'm kind of half asleep. I'm not a fully grown lion by any means. So I called myself Sleeping Lion. That was my first medicine name. And so that's what I was known as until I changed my name with it through a number of experiences, and I became Waking Lion, and I became Lion on the Prowl, and I started teaching at his school, and I just started introducing myself as Lion, and that's how I became Lion, as I grew into it.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So did you legally change your name to Lion?
Yeah.
Wow, really cool. Really cool. That's not the story you told me initially. You said my parents gave me a name I didn't like.
Oh, well, that's my quick answer.
I like this one better.
I say that my parents gave me an assumed name.
Okay.
They assumed I would like it when I grew up, and I didn't. So I changed it. So that's another fun way of saying it in a short form.
I have to be very honest with you. I had a great time, and I'm so happy. And I know you got up extra early to be on my show, and I appreciate that. and, living your life with intention, living your life to help other people, because you realized maybe you, not at first, because your girlfriend said you're a coach. And once you took that on, right, your intentions became to help. So I appreciate that in you, and that the fact that you're still doing it, that you're giving out a monthly 2-hour workshop to people for free. Wow, that is huge, my friend. That is so huge.
Thank
At
you.
any given time, if you ever want to ship me one of your amazing books, I would love a signed copy.
Be delighted.
And anybody who wants to look for your books, tell us where they can find them.
My ebooks can be found on liongoodman.com. That's Lion, Goodman.com. There's articles and media. So my ebooks are there for free downloading. My published book, Creating on Purpose, can be found at any bookstore or Amazon, and that is creatingonpurpose.net. And we're about to come out with a program, video program that people can use. And so if you sign up on creatingonpurpose.net, you'll get informed when that comes out. It's coming out in just a couple months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So congratulations to all your graduates today.
Thank you. I will pass your congratulations on. It's very exciting.
It's the next chapter, right? When someone graduates, moving on, what do you do with the knowledge that you have? So graduation is like the key to open the door, right?
Absolutely. It's a completion, and completions are really important to the manifestation process, because celebration is how you know that you've completed something. And so all these ceremonies, whether it's bar mitzvah or confirmation or wedding, you're doing a ritual that confirms the completion of a phase and launches you into the next phase. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really important part. Some people accomplish something and they forget to celebrate it. Right. And so they're just accomplishing, and they never get the juice, the sweetness of the feeling of like, I did something. I could say, now I can enjoy what I've accomplished. So it's a really important step in any development.
Yeah, that's part of, and I appreciate you saying that. That's part of my gratitude. I celebrate every day, because every day, listen, I accomplished being alive today. Right. I accomplished, making a difference in someone else's life, and I accomplished maybe some of the tasks I had. So to me, every day is a celebration, right? And I'm looking for tomorrow's celebrations, but I still have to live in the moment, and I still have to celebrate all my wins today. No matter how small, right?
Yeah. My grandfather said, every day above ground is a good day.
It is a great day. I agree. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. I know you have a busy schedule today.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you, Rafael, and I really appreciate being on your show. I love being interviewed by you and with you, because this collaboration is joyous for me, to be able to see a fellow human being that is awakened, and we can talk about all things possible.
Absolutely. I think you and I are going to be very well connected. So let's keep.
I look forward to it. All right, great. Thank you.
All right, enjoy.